Melendez, and this is the read aloud for the Newsela article entitled African American Protests During World War II. So, this particular video is just to read aloud the article. Of course, like always, it's an option, but just in case, I go ahead and read it out loud for you if you have any misunderstandings or maybe a little bit of a problem with comprehension. So let's go ahead and start. African Americans forced change through the threat of protest. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. We're going to be talking about this individual here, the civil rights leader A. Philip Randolph, and as you can see, he is taking a picture in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington D.C. And he founded the March on Washington movement in 1941 to protest segregation and the hypocrisy of an American government that denounced Nazi racism overseas, yet propped up the systematic discrimination of African Americans at home. So we're going to be specifically talking about what this individual did during the time frame when African Americans were also fighting overseas against the Nazis and also against the Japanese in the Pacific. So let's go ahead and start as I'm scrolling up. World War II began in 1939. At that time, many African Americans lived in the South. They had very little money. Many worked as farmers. As the country prepared for war, weapon factories needed more workers. Many black people wanted factory jobs because they paid more than farming. African Americans moved to cities where the factories were, but the factories refused to hire them. They only wanted white workers. This is called job discrimination. The U.S. fought World War II against Germany, Japan, and other countries. At the time, Germany was ruled by the Nazi Party. The Nazis thought Jews were a lower race. Jews are people who follow the religion of Judaism. In Germany, they did not have the same rights as others. The U.S. government said that Germany was mistreating Jewish people, but back in America, black people felt they were treated unfairly too. Many did not have the right to vote. Black and white kids went to segregated or separate schools. Black soldiers were segregated from white soldiers too. They were usually not allowed to fight. This made African Americans angry. They spoke out against racism. A man named A. Philip Randolph led the way. He was a civil rights leader. He wanted life to be fair for African Americans. In 1940, Randolph and other black leaders met with President Franklin D. Roosevelt. They wanted black soldiers to fight side by side with the white soldiers. Roosevelt said no. Randolph negotiates with Roosevelt. Randolph did not give up. In 1941, he started the March on Washington movement. Thousands of African Americans got ready to march in Washington, D.C. Their goal was to force Roosevelt to act. They wanted him to stop job discrimination in the weapons factory. They also wanted black soldiers and white soldiers to fight together. Roosevelt decided to meet with Randolph again. He asked Randolph to stop the march. When Randolph refused, Roosevelt offered a deal. He signed an order to end job discrimination in the weapons factory. Pleased with the deal, Randolph called off the march. In 1948, black protesters started planning another march. At that point, the president was Harry Truman. Because of the protesters, he signed an order to end segregation between black and white soldiers. African Americans finally had more rights. There were still many problems, though. Job discrimination didn't stop. Black citizens still could not vote in the South. Many were attacked because of their skin color. Life for black Americans was still hard, but these events were a step forward. They led to the civil rights movement in the 1950s. That is the end of the read aloud. If you take the video and you scroll down, right, you're going to come across the 7 questions. I'm going to briefly talk or read aloud the questions. Question 1. What did African Americans protest during World War II? Question number 2. The main idea of the introduction, paragraphs 1 through 4, is that black workers in America were treated unfairly during World War II. Which key detail from the introduction supports this idea? Question number 3. Why did A. Philip Randolph plan a march? Question 4. What is the main idea of the section Randolph negotiates with Roosevelt? Question 5. What was the goal of the March on Washington movement? Question 6. Read the 2 sentences below from the introduction, paragraphs 1 through 4. The U.S. government said that Germany was mistreating Jewish people, but back in America, black people felt they were treated unfairly too. How are the sentences connected? Question number 7. What happened after black protesters planned another march in 1948 after World War II? When you are done answering these questions, make sure that you highlight and save it and then submit it. Again, this is just to read aloud and it's optional. But I do this just in case if you have any misunderstandings or any kind of confusion with comprehension. And again, if you need further assistance, please feel free to send me an email or contact me or visit my office hours or Miss Sonia's office hours. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Melendez. I am punching out. Have a great day. Be safe.